I first saw Srila Prabhupada at the Auckland University in New Zealand. It was sometime in April 1972. I was studying there, studying philosophy. One morning I was walking through the grounds of the university, and I heard, coming from my right-hand side, a sound like little bells ringing. Intriguing sound. So I looked across to the right, and there, who should I see? Maybe 15, 20 meters away from me, something like that, was Srila Prabhupada. And he was walking along in a very regal way with his head back, kind of bright, effulgent saffron clothes, silk clothes, walking basically in my direction. On either side, there were young ladies in saris. Each one had a bowl of rose petals, red rose petals. They were dancing very rhythmically and very gently and beautifully on either side of Prabhupada. And as they're dancing, they're throwing the rose petals under his feet. And I saw this sight. It was such a sight. And the thought just popped into my head, this must be like heaven. So then Prabhupada was walking towards me. Behind him, there was a small group, maybe 6 or 7 other devotees, disciples, some young men, couple of young ladies. And the young men had shaved heads. At the time I had long hair. And I saw these young men with shaved heads. And I thought, oh, that's not so good. Anyway, Prabhupada just walked right past me and the group of devotees. The bells were cartels, of course. And there was a little stage, just a very small stage, just maybe 20 or 30 meters away in the main quadrangle area in the university, just near the cafeteria. And Prabhupada sat down there, and the devotees sat with him, and Prabhupada led a kirtan. It was at that point when Prabhupada was singing that I recognized, oh, this is Hare Krishna, because I had heard of Hare Krishna. I hadn't met any devotees, seen any. I didn't really know what it meant other than it was from India. It was very cool because the Beatles were into it. And he started singing. And I realized, oh, this is Hare Krishna. And I actually thought, maybe he's Krishna. And then Prabhupada gave a talk, which was recorded, and it's been published in Back to Godhead. It's in the folio. Prabhupada's addressing the students. There's quite a group gathered there to hear him. And Prabhupada was saying, you are the flower of your country. Don't waste your lives. Do something useful with your lives. Become Krishna conscious. So that was the first experience I had the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada. You know, there were many incidents where I was present and Srila Prabhupada was there, but one point which really has stuck in my mind was when I was given second initiation. It was kind of early-ish 74. And Rabhatanandan, Swami, he did the fire yajna. And the next morning, we had to go in one by one to be given Gayatri by Srila Prabhupada. So actually, an interesting thing that had happened just a couple of weeks before was Prabhupada called for all the candidates for initiation to come and meet him. So we all went in. There was maybe a dozen of us. And Prabhupada came out into the darshan room in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And Prabhupada said, so, is everyone chanting their rounds? And we all said yes. But there were 2 young ladies, perhaps even just in their late teens, and they giggled and said, no, we're not chanting our rounds. And Prabhupada really didn't appreciate that. Prabhupada cancelled the initiation for everyone. So you can imagine those young ladies were not popular. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, the initiation happened. So the next morning I went in. I was the first one to go in. It was immediately after Mangalarti in Bhaktivedanta Manor. I went in. I already had my Brahmin thread on. Rabatanandan had put it on the day before. So I went and offered obeisances on my own. First time I was alone with Srila Prabhupada. And I sort of I was kneeling, I came up a bit, and Prabhupada looked at me. And Prabhupada said, "Why have you got your Brahmin thread on?" Strongly. And it just caught me by surprise. I became speechless. I was just sitting there. And Prabhupada saw that. And Prabhupada said, "Who put it on?" I said, "Rabatanandan Swami." Prabhupada said, "Why did he put it on? I wanted to put it on you." Then Prabhupada called for the temple president, who was Mukunda Prabhu at the time. So Mukunda was nearby. He came in just a matter of seconds later. And you know, when Prabhupada would come to the manor, practically everyone would come from all over Europe. There may be 400 or 500 devotees in the manor right then. And Mukunda, as the president, he was really busy. So Prabhupada called him in and asked him, "Why has this boy got his Brahmin thread on?" And Mukunda became speechless also. And Prabhupada told him, you are the temple president. You're meant to know about these things. Why do you not know?" And Mukunda couldn't answer. And then Prabhupada sent him out. The whole experience, it was a very striking experience because I'd never been with Prabhupada before. And his mood was strong. He spoke strongly. He was sort of cutting and questioning why. And he wanted to know why. But I didn't feel that he's angry with me, that he's upset with me. What I felt was that he cares. He's concerned about me. I really felt that he has accepted me, that we have a relationship, and that relationship really means something to him. Even to the point that he pursued the issue. He made an issue of it. He called in the temple president, made an issue of it with him strongly, and questioned him a few times about his role in the whole thing. So it really struck me very deeply, even though I was a bit sort of slightly disturbed by the scenario. But I really felt that I mean something to him. I'm not just another name on a list or something like that. I am a person who he has a relationship with. I mean something to him. He cares about me. He's interested in me. And he really wants to help me. I really felt there was affection there. So when I walked out at the end of all that, I was sort of buzzing a little because of the intensity of it. But what really carried over in my mind, and it carries over till today, is that this is my spiritual master. Even though we'd never met before, and he, in a certain sense, he didn't know who on earth I was, but he did. And he cared, he was concerned, he was interested. He had affection that really went deep into my heart. So after that time, when I was rendering service, I would say, practically always thinking how this is for Prabhupada. It's part of my connection with Prabhupada, my relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Yes, well, I remember one very striking experience that I had with Srila Prabhupada. It was in Bhaktivedanta Manor. It was, I would say, the spring of '74. And Prabhupada had a darshan. You know, he would pass through London regularly. And whenever he'd pass through, he'd stop at the manor for a few days. I was there. I was the treasurer at the time in the manor. So there was a darshan one afternoon, and there was maybe 10 of us or so, not a large number, in Prabhupada's main darshan room. So Prabhupada was speaking about different things. And then one boy, his name is Achintya Rupa, he asked Prabhupada a question. He actually had a copy of Nectar of Devotion with him, and he read a few sentences from the chapter which is talking about offenses to be avoided, that particular chapter. So he read what Prabhupada had said there, that if you perform what are called seva aparads, there's a few lists of offenses in that chapter. The first couple of lists of maybe 30 or so each, they're seva aparads, which, you know, they're aparads, but they're not so serious like the 10 nam aparads. So he read what Prabhupada said there, that Prabhupada says there, if you commit those seva aparads, then as you continue in your service, the effects may just be sort of cleansed away. But, Prabhupada says there, if you commit any of the 10 offenses against the holy names, then you cannot overcome the reactions. So this devotee read this out. And then he said to Prabhupada, he said, but Srila Prabhupada, isn't there some way to overcome those reactions against the 10 offenses? And Prabhupada looked at him. He gave him one of those piercing looks. And Srila Prabhupada said, you are asking this question because you want to offend. You want to offend, and then you want to just do something to get free from the reactions. But no, you must not do like that. And Prabhupada said, you must stop offending. No more offenses. So that was really quite an experience for all of us. I think the lesson is quite obvious, that even though in some literatures like Harinam Chintamani there's talk about if you commit this one of the 10 offenses you can do something and that'll be okay. But Prabhupada, he was insisting and expecting and emphasizing how essential it is to avoid those offenses completely and not just sort of tolerate being offensive to some degree. Then, during that same darshan, different devotees were asking different questions. One devotee asked Prabhupada that if you are going out and preaching and distributing books and so on, and you do something wrong, which there should be a reaction for, does the reaction, because you're going out preaching, does the reaction get cleansed away more quickly than if you're living in a temple and you do some similar type of wrong things somehow? And Srila Prabhupada immediately answered, yes. If you're going out preaching, then the reaction will just be immediately cleansed away. Whereas if you're doing service in the temple, you may have to take that reaction. Yes, that was a very interesting experience. Then, one devotee asked Prabhupada, what should we say when we distribute your books? How should we get people to take the books? Srila Prabhupada stood up, picked up a book, went over to a devotee, gave the devotee the book, and Prabhupada then spoke as if he's distributing the book. Prabhupada said, my dear sir, I can see you are very intelligent. In fact, I think you are the most intelligent person I have met all day. And my dear sir, I have just one request of you. Please forget all your nonsense and read this book. That was Prabhupada's demonstration. how to do book distribution. Everyone was very happy, sort of glowing, and the German Sankirtan party, they had a real energy. They were a powerful team. And there they were in front of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada looked at them. And Srila Prabhupada said, "So, what is the main thing?" And so many of them put up their hands. "Book distribution, Srila Prabhupada." Prabhupada said, "No. What is the main thing?" They became a little taken aback. And some suggested, well, preaching, Srila Prabhupada, or chanting, or a few suggestions were made. But they were a bit taken aback that book distribution was not the main thing. Then Prabhupada said, the main thing is you must read these books. I have written these books for you. And Prabhupada actually, as I recall, mentioned that it will not be very good if you go out distributing the books and the people ask you, "What is this book about?" And you say, "I do not know, but it is a very good book," and you should take it. Yes. You know, when I was in Srila Prabhupada's company, which was quite a number of times, particularly at Bhaktivedanta Manor, the main thing that really struck me was his mood of mercy and concern and interest in his disciples. I recall when it may have been his last, if not his last, one of his very last visits to the manor, either late 76 or sometime 77. Jayatirtha was the GBC. And so Prabhupada arrived, went into his rooms in the manor, and a number of us, as many as could, we went in, and Jayatirtha was there. And Jayatirtha was right next to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada put his hand on his head and sort of, ruffled his hair or whatever, like that, stroked his head, and said, "Your name is Jayatirtha. Tirtha means holy place. People take shelter of the Tirthas. I have come to take shelter of you." Yeah, Prabhupada said that. "I've come to take shelter of you." And, the sort of not just the warmth of relationship, but the humility, the genuineness, that he actually felt like that. He wasn't being sort of patronizing or trying to just encourage him. He actually felt like that. Prabhupada was coming from Vrindavan through Delhi. And then we met Prabhupada at the airport. And when Prabhupada was in the manor that time, physically he was severely indisposed. His body looked bad. He was practically emaciated, very thin. I'd never seen him look like that before. And he was very frail. He couldn't really walk much. When he came out of the airport terminal, he was in a wheelchair. They had to carry him around the manor when he'd come to the temple. But I remember he'd be carried down on a palanquin to the temple, and he would sit in front of the Vyasasan, basically, or near the Vyasasan in the temple room in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And he'd sit there and look at the devotees. The GBC, I think Hansadutta was the GBC. Bhagavan was there. They told us, when Prabhupada comes, we're going to have a Guru Puja, but keep the kirtan very gentle. We don't want to sort of, affect Prabhupada emotionally. So every morning the Guru Puja would start and the kirtan would just take off. And Prabhupada would just sit there, more or less motionless, without any movement. He'd just look at the devotees and slowly look around. as this kirtan was going on, and tears would just run down his cheeks and just drip, drip, drip off his chin, just constantly. I'd never seen that before. And he'd just sit there. Sometimes he'd raise his hands like that. Otherwise, he'd just sit there and look. And it was just so clear that he loved the devotees, and he really cared, and he really appreciated the devotees. They meant like the world to him, actually. So that was a very amazing experience.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu